Down on the shore, the good old Gonzalo was the first to haul himself to his feet. He was amazed to find himself in one piece, no wounds, no broken bones, and his clothes, which had been drenched in sea water, were now as fresh as when he first put them on. It was all very strange. He looked along the sand to the forlorn figure of Alonso, the King of Naples, Ferdinand's father, still tightly wrapped in his cloak. Two soldiers sat by him back to back, their heads on their chests and their spears propped against their shoulders. Gonzalo walked over to them and clicked his fingers. Their heads jerked up and they looked up blinking. "Take up your positions," Gonzalo told them. "We don't know who might be watching us. You must guard the king." Then he stood before Alonso and bowed. "My lord," he said, "we are safe. We have come through." Alonso glanced up briefly but made no reply, and Gonzalo knelt beside him. "I know, my lord," he said gently, "you are thinking of your son. But here we are, safe and well, on this fine island, when we thought we were bound to die. Perhaps he has survived too." "No, Gonzalo, it is useless to hope." Try as he might, the old man could not persuade his master that the young man might still be alive. He told him that he'd seen Ferdinand. He was swimming strongly through the waves. But Alonso merely shook his head. He did not want to listen to false hopes. "My only son," he murmured, "lost forever." As they talked, the invisible Ariel appeared at their side and sat cross-legged, looking curiously from one to the other. After a while, he touched them lightly on the head, first the king and then old Gonzalo, and they became drowsy and fell asleep. Then he passed his eyes in front of the eyes of the guards, and instantly their heads dropped again. They slept on their feet, leaning against their spears. He left them there and drifted along the beach to see what else he could learn. There he found Prospero's brother, Antonio, tapping his dagger against his hand and whispering to Sebastian. "Look at them now," he said with a nod towards the other two. "That old fool Gonzalo and your brother, sleeping like babies, as weak as babies too." Sebastian narrowed his eyes. "Weak as babies? What do you mean by that? Can't you guess?" Antonio laughed. "Look at me, Sebastian, and tell me what you see." "I see my friend, the Duke of Milan," said Sebastian. "Why?" "And how did I become the Duke, eh? You remember my brother? You remember Prospero, stuck in his library with his books? He was the Duke until I got rid of him." He paused and looked steadily at Sebastian. They were face to face, their foreheads almost touching. But Ariel still found room to crouch between them and listen to every wicked word. "You understand me now, my friend. Here we are alone on this island, and there's your brother fast asleep. You have a dagger, just like mine. Kill him now, and who would know? Kill Alonso? Kill them both, him and the old fool Gonzalo. Then Naples will have a new king. You, King Sebastian. How does that sound?" Sebastian considered this for a moment, and then jumped up and drew out his dagger. "Yes," he cried, "we'll do it now. Who's to know?" Ariel was to know, of course. Antonio and Sebastian moved stealthily to where the older men were sleeping, but Ariel was there before them. He stooped and sang into Gonzalo's ear, "Beware, beware," and instantly the old man woke up. The two traitors stopped in their tracks. "My lord," said Gonzalo, "wake up!" The king stirred and opened his eyes. The guards too became alert again. They stood at the ready, grasping their spears and trying to look as if they'd been awake all the time. "What is it?" said the king. "Sebastian, Antonio, why have you drawn your daggers?" There was a sound, Antonio answered, glancing quickly at Sebastian. "Didn't you hear it?" Gonzalo ran his hands through his hair and shook his head to clear his thoughts. "I heard something, yes," he said, "a strange buzzing sound in my ear, but I couldn't say what it was." "We thought it was wild beasts," Sebastian mumbled. "We came to protect you." Alonso glanced nervously up the slope of the beach towards the distant trees and bushes. It was true. There was something threatening about the place. It looked as if there might be wild creatures up there, watching them and waiting for the chance to strike. He turned back to Antonio and Sebastian and smiled. "Thank you, my friends," he said. "We owe you our lives. It's not wise to sleep out here in the open." "Perhaps we should move on then," said Gonzalo. Yes, said Alonso. We should see if the island has food and water, and I must know what's happened to my poor son. Ariel watched them trail inland. They moved warily, peering from side to side, and they kept their swords at the ready in case some new danger was lurking nearby. Never fear, sang Ariel softly. I shall see you again. I shall be with you before you can blink. But first, there are others to attend to. He soared high up into the air and hovered over the island like a hawk. Up there in the clouds, he could see all the tiny figures from the shipwreck, the king and his men cutting their way through the bushes, Ferdinand sitting outside Prospero's cave, and Miranda laughing with her as if he'd known her all his life. On the far side of the island, Caliban was stumbling about in the clearing and piling up logs. Wandering close by him were two other lost souls, a thin man with bells on his hat and a plump one swigging from a bottle. I know you two, murmured Ariel up in the clouds. You skinny one are Trinculo, the jester, and you helping yourself to the king's wine are Stefano, the butler, and you are both mischief makers. The two men couldn't see each other, and they couldn't see Caliban, but they were heading steadily in his direction. And when you three meet, said Ariel, there will be trouble. So he swooped down to be there when their paths crossed.